I'm joined by one of the best analytical minds in the game, Dan Hardy, and now head of PFL Europe Fighter Operations. Congrats on your role.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and how was fight week this one for you? I know you're here with Veronica. Looked like she had no issues at all on the scale. Not too bad of a cut, yeah?
No, she's been really good. Disciplined all the way through training camp. Weights come down gradually. We've not done any drastic weight cutting or anything. And yeah, she's already feeling great. She's had breakfast 3 times already and everything's good. It's nice to be here as a coach as well, you know. Hanging back and just focusing on one fighter. It's really good.
Yeah, and she kicks off the night 3 years away from the octagon. She cited kind of concussion issues, which is no joke. When do you decide you're ready to go? Is that doctor clearance, adequate time off? Like, how did you guys come to the decision that was time to return?
It was a bit of all of those things, to be honest. Like when we got back from Brasilia, she was really not in a good place. I mean, she was having migraines multiple times a day, every day. She was struggling to sleep because of her neck issues, and it was a whole combination of concussion and neck issues. And it took her really 6 months just to properly rest, and I had to keep closing the gym door and locking it to keep her out because she's always wanting to be in there and doing stuff. And she doesn't train light. Every time she trains hard. So I've tried to slow her down a bit. And she had about 6 months where she was doing very light work, and she got the migraines under control. And then we've addressed the other issues, and she's much better now. But it took a while. And to be honest, we need to share the awareness about concussions, because it wasn't a concussion. It was a concussion after a concussion after a concussion. It was like 3 in a row, and then she fought. It was just a perfect storm of terrible situations, really. So we're out of that now. This is a whole new career for her.
Well, it's good to have her back. She takes on Juliana Miller, very emotional, very aggressive fighter. What do you make of the matchup?
I think it's a really good one. I think it's really good. I mean, of course, you know, Miller's she's 4-1. She won the Ultimate Fighter, but this is her first time on a big show. First fight of the night, so it's a bit less pressure, of course, walking out. But then Veronica's an unknown quantity. Like, how can you research her? Like, she's been out for 3 years. She's not the fighter that you can see on the previous tapes. I've made sure of that. You know, she's calmed down. She's made much better decisions. Her game is just so well-rounded anyway. It was just a case of kind of putting it into a structure. And now it's in that structure. I just don't see where she can be beaten, to be honest. She is in really good shape. And Miller's a fun fight. She's a scrapper, right? She comes wild punches, body lock takedown. She's got good neck attacks and stuff because she's 10th planet. But I'm 10th planet, so I've kind of unpicked all of that stuff, and we're ready to go. We're ready to go.
Veronica kicks off the night, and the headliner, Kamaru, Usman, Leon Edwards 3, their trilogy bout. A lot is made, I feel like, 2 narratives, the altitude, and then a lot of it, you know, Kamaru goes, Leon seems to forget what was happening in the first fight. How much do you think it's altitude, and how much do you think it was Kamaru's heavy wrestling pressure that had an impact on his cardio?
You know, I think it was a combination of a few things. You know, I think Leon certainly fell off after the first round. He had a really good first round. I don't know whether it was an adrenaline dump out of excitement from taking his back or, you know, just getting a takedown on Usman. I mean, that would be me winning the fight if I got a takedown on Usman. You can imagine. Like, he must have thought to himself, oh, I'm in mount, I'm on his back, and then his adrenaline must have shot up. But then the second round, you know, I talked about it in my breakdown show, he seemed kind of flat, like he was like looking off when the referee started the round, and that first 90 seconds, he was like twisted his ankle on the fence, and it was just a really weird start to a second round. And then, of course, like, Kamaru lost the first round, so he came out hard, pressured him against the fence to take his kicking away, worked really good shots to the body, which of course is going to affect his conditioning as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, what's Colorado, 6,800 feet? So Kamaru came down to 4,300 to Salt Lake, and Salt Lake at 4,300 still feels like your lungs are very tight when you're not used to it. So I do feel like there was an impact in that, like physically as well as psychologically. You know, oh, I feel tired. I've got 20 minutes to go, and then Usman does what he does for 3 rounds. You know, he just took the fight away from Leon, and we got the opportunity to witness a fantastic corner team rallying him at the end, and it was, you know, a perfect finish. But the thing is, Leon knows it can happen now. He knows that he only needs that split second. And he knows that he can lose 3 rounds and still find that victory at the end of it. So it's definitely done a lot for his confidence. And it wasn't like he lost the first round. He came out really strong. So, no, this might be a decision with 3 rounds to 2, one way or the other. And it might be a lot tighter than the previous one, just because now Leon's got the confidence that he can win. And I don't know as he had that going into the first fight.
Yeah, because
Second fight, sorry.
because Leon had success in the wrestling in the first round. But if you're Leon, do you go away from that? You don't want to exert that energy in the grappling, or do you say, you know what, I can throw some offensive wrestling to throw Usman off as well?
I think it did throw Usman off a little bit because, you know, from the second round onwards, what you noticed is Usman was pressuring into range, but then anytime Leon tried to dig deep underhooks like he had in the first round, Usman was head position and bailing out and going back to striking. So it was like Usman had to find this comfortable zone where he was able to box but not wrestle too much. And I think that must have been it must have been a positive reinforcement for Leon, knowing that Usman didn't want to clinch with him, but at the same time it took away a part of his game that I think he was expecting to use a bit more. But you've got to think about how they're going to adapt. Like, we know Leon's got good elbows and knees. Like, we remember the one he landed on Gunnar. I can see him using those kind of techniques in this fight against Usman, and that would solve the close range problem if he can't clinch.
And if you're Kamaru Usman, do you go, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? I had a lot of success with the grappling, or what do you see from the second fight that Kamaru needs to change?
It's that Goldilocks zone of not being too far out where you have to deal with the kicking and not too close in where you have to deal with the body lock. Like, Usman knows he's got better wrestling, so he's going to be confident that he's going to be able to pressure without clinching. But he's going to have to maintain a boxing range, I think. I think boxing's ideal for Usman. Any further into the clinch, and it's a case of just kind of trying to be anti-clinch and trying to drain Leon a little bit, because again it's a more familiar energy system to Usman being close and clinched than it is for Leon. So there are still benefits to Usman clinching and controlling up against the fence, but I don't know how much he's going to want to try and ground and pound in this fight, because Leon's ground game is improving all the time. And then this is C-level Leon, so that might be a different thing again.
If I can get a final prediction from you, who are you leaning?
Well, I picked Usman last time around. I thought he was going to be beaten by decisions, and of course he was on the track to do it. But I can't pick against Leon this time around. From seeing what he did in the last fight to knowing how he's prepared for this one, I think Leon's going to do it. I think it'll be a harder fight, but I do feel like he's going to win a couple of rounds and maybe even get a finish still.
Let's touch on the co-main event real quick. Fan favorite matchup. I think that's the fight that everyone's salivating for. I kind of asked both guys about if they expect wrestling, and I thought both of them were going to be like, no, we're standing. Both of them were kind of like on the fence. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see any wrestling in this fight?
I think we might. It's always been something about Gaethje's career that we've always kind of wondered, why does he not use his wrestling? Because he's such a good wrestler. And, he's always had so much success with his striking. Like, he joined the UFC undefeated, and he'd kind of proven his fighting style works, but then he ran into a couple of losses, and we saw him adapt. We saw him move a little bit more, be a bit smarter with his defense, a bit low with his work rate. We're ready for another adaptation from Gaethje. His last fight not worked. His last couple of fights have not really worked out the way that he wanted them to. I feel like he's going to adapt again, and I do feel like we're going to see some wrestling. But then, what's Fiziev's takedown defense? 92%. He's not going to be easy to take down. I just think that Gaethje, again, kind of similar to Usman, he needs to find that sweet spot where he's inside the kicking range of Fiziev, working the low kicks of his own, which we know, of course, Gaethje's really good at, and then clinch into striking and not being too neglectful of his wrestling. Even if he doesn't want the fight on the floor, just keep giving Fiziev that idea that he might, because that will keep Fiziev on the back foot. I mean, what a fight. I kind of wish it was 5 rounds, if I'm honest, and I kind of feel like that might be a deciding factor in the way the fight goes, because I feel like the additional 2 rounds is probably beneficial for Gaethje because he's mauling ability. Like, you look at the RDA fight with Fiziev, that was the only round he lost, was the 4th, right? You've got to think that if Gaethje had an additional 2 rounds, his cardio comes into play a lot more, and I don't know as it is going to in this one, unless he wrestles hard, which I don't know as he's going to either. But we'll see. I'm excited for it, though.
Yeah, Fiziev said Gaethje is going to have to use his wrestling. Do you agree with that statement? I think he's basically implying he can't stand with me. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think if Gaethje stands at range with Fiziev, it's a bad night for him. Fiziev's kicking game is unreal. Low kicks, body kicks, high kicks. The one fight that he lost against Mustafayev in his debut, it was almost like he was too relaxed because the hype around him was so great. And he got caught with the technique that he normally lands on other people. It was a bit of a weird one. He could be undefeated if he'd have stepped into that fight with his mindset switched on like there's a real risk with this guy. I think he might have still beat Mustafayev. But as it is right now, I feel like Fiziev at range is probably one of the best. Well, he's probably the best striker in the division, to be honest. Like well-roundedness, speed, composure, and the other thing as well. It doesn't matter really where he kicks or what he kicks; it still does a lot of damage. Like RDA's forearm was damaged really badly from blocking those kicks. And if Gaethje's in range to be hit, he's going to be hit, and he'll be damaged regardless of where it lands, whether it's on the guard or not. Fiziev's just so fast, and I feel like Gaethje has to kind of maul him a little bit, make it really untidy, and that's where his wrestling comes in, dragging on his neck, reaching for his legs, making Fiziev think about several things all at once, and then that's where Gaethje's power comes through in his hands.
And yeah, Gaethje seems to lure people into wars. I know Rafael and his team probably don't want that. They're used to kind of the technical stand-up fight, but do you think it would be a mistake for Rafael to fight fire with fire if Gaethje tries to pull him in?
I think so. I think so. I think, the more technical that Fiziev can keep this, the better. Like in the Brad Riddell fight, and I feel like there was a bit of a point to prove in that one because they were coaches at Tiger Muay Thai. One took the other job, and so I kind of feel like Fiziev wanted to stand in the pocket in that fight more than he would do normally. But that would be risky against Gaethje, and unnecessarily risky, especially where Fiziev's at in his career. He's trying to progress to the belt, and I don't think he needs to take those risks against Gaethje. 3 rounds, 15 minutes. If he stays on his toes and stays at range, he should be able to light Gaethje up and keep away from him. It's Gaethje that's going to have to do the work, walking through the fire and making it a scrap. And I think Fiziev's smart enough to stay away from that.
So does that mean you're picking Fiziev?
I am leaning towards Fiziev. Yeah, I just feel like he's at a different stage of his career to Gaethje. Gaethje's I feel like he's towards the end of his career. I feel like he's taken a lot of damage that's probably followed him to this point, and Fiziev's just not in that position. I feel like he's going to go from strength to strength, and he's the new generation. Fiziev and Gregor Gillespie and Arman Sarukian, these are the guys that are coming through that are going to be the top of the division when Gaethje retires, and I feel like that time is kind of coming, and Fiziev's moving into that space.
We'll leave it at that. Dan, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
No worries.